colleagues and students. Today I'll be talking on typhoid fever and its prevention. At the outset, I'd like to tell that this is a seminar sponsored by biological events and there's a conflict of interest. And with this, I start my talk. As you know, India is the center of typhoid. As high as 500 to 700 cases per lakh population is reported every year. And it has the highest burden of typhoid in all of the Asian countries. And what is more important, in the pre-antibiotic era, typhoid was the disease of school children and young adults. But with the advent of antibiotics, the typhoid has showing a trend towards lower age group. So much so that nearly 30% of the cases are now below 2 years and 10% are below 1 year. And that's the reason why vaccination in typhoids is the need of the hour. So these are the different studies done on different age groups from 1 month to 60 months of the incidence of typhoid, and you can see in the first 12 months of life, fairly good number of cases are there. And what is more important, of all the communicable disease of in India, heading the list is respiratory infection, then acute diarrhea, and third is the enteric fever, that is typhoid, of which bulk is caused by Salmonella typhi, though we get few cases of paratyphi also. So with this, I come to a small case which was admitted in our hospital. A boy, 7 years old, 20 kg, had high fever for last 7 days, general weakness and constipation. He was treated with homeopathic medicines and paracetamol given. The fever initially subsided but reappeared. On examination, he had a coated tongue, mild distension of the abdomen, and liver 2 centimeters was palpable, and investigations have ordered. So this is the investigation result, hemoglobin 8.9, total count was 8,700 with neutrophils 63, lymphocyte 35, eosinophil 0. CRP was slightly less, 24. Vidal test was done, H and O both were positive in 1 in 160. Urea create was normal, blood glucose was normal, urine routine was normal, and urine and blood culture was put up. The reports has not yet arrived, and we started with IV ceftriaxone, but there was no improvement in the next 2 days. Worried, the patient brought the child to our institute. Now let's see what is the role of routine investigation in diagnosis of typhoid fever. If you see carefully, hemoglobin is a little bit low, but in a country where iron deficiency anemia is rife, you expect in all children hemoglobin might be slightly low. As such, enteric fever does not cause low hemoglobin unless and until it lasts for a long time. The total count, as often quoted in the textbook, leukopenia is suggestive of typhoid, but in most of the cases, we either have leukocytosis or normal leukocyte count and hardly any leukopenia. But one very important thing you do find in typhoid, that is eosinophenia. Eosinophenia is one of the hallmarks of typhoid. Regarding the serological tests, Vidal test has been done for last so many years, but let me explain you what is the basis of this test. In Vidal test, we measure the antibodies. But any test where we measure the antibody against an infective organism, it has its own problem because antibodies are often cross-reactive. We know that enteric Salmonella typhi has a somatic O antigen and a flagellar H antigen. And antibodies against this O and H we measure. There are two types of antibodies. One is IgM, another is IgG. IgG antibodies last for a long time and they denote both recent and past infection. Whereas IgM antibodies, they denote recent infection, and we measure these antibodies, both IgG and IgM. But as I've told you, this Widal test has many drawbacks. The most important drawback, it has a very poor specificity, because any enterobacteria, any infection of the gastrointestinal tract can give rise to similar antibodies. So it is cross-reactive with infections of the GI tract. Even unrelated infections such as malaria, they can give rise to rise in such antibodies. This is known as anamnestic reaction. And also in endemic areas, because the typhoid fever is so rife that the population contains some amount of antibody always in their blood. So there are no suitable cutoffs of the level of antibodies which should be taken as positive. And what we do, we collect the sera of the patient, which contains the antibodies, and we add the antigen. And the purity of antigen is also doubtful in some cases. But what is more dangerous is it has poor sensitivity. The antibodies don't rise in the first few days of typhoid fever. So we want to diagnose typhoid as early as possible, but this test is not at all sensitive in the early days of the fever, at least in the first 5 days. And if the child has received antibiotics, the antibiotics may dampen the rise of antibodies. And there's considerable number of persons who don't mount an antibody reaction. So what has been done? Some modification of this Widal test has been done. In what modification they have done? Because the IgG antibodies persist, denotes both past and present infection. So they have added substances in this Widal test to nullify or destroy the IgG antibodies, and we measure the IgM antibodies. These are the basis of the modified Widal test. This is the modified Widal test, but again the modified Widal test, again we are measuring the same antibodies, and the poor sensitivity and specificity which I mentioned just now is also holds true for this modified test. So modified Widal test does not give us any advantage. And the best way to diagnose typhoid is to send for a blood culture. Blood culture has an excellent sensitivity in the first week of fever, the time during which you want to diagnose the infection. And also you will see even prior antibiotics, even if you give prior antibiotics, Salmonella typhi we can grow. And what is more important, blood culture not only gives a diagnosis of Salmonella typhi, but also it gives a sensitivity pattern of the antibiotics you are going to use. So this is a very important advantage we have for this. So coming to our case, this was the blood culture report from our institute, and this red mark is not in the report. I have put this mark. It is showing that the blood culture has grown Salmonella typhi. Now let us see how to interpret a blood culture report. Whenever you get a positive blood culture, don't jump. The organism which has been isolated in the blood culture may be a true pathogen, may be a common cell, or may be a contaminant. So how do you know which one of these three? The culture result should match the clinical features or the clinical findings in the patient you are treating. So here the patient who is suffering from fever, who has eosinopenia, and so here the Salmonella typhi is most likely a true pathogen. Supposing instead of Salmonella typhi you had got coagulase negative staphylococci, what should be your interpretation in such a case? All of you know coagulase negative staphylococci does not cause any disease in an immunocompetent child. It will cause disease in person who has a CSF shunt, who has a foreign body inside his body like prosthetic valve. So if had it been so, we got a coagulase positive staphylococci, then it has been a common cell. Where from the common cell has come? It has come from the skin, which was not properly sterilized when the needle was put inside to collect blood. Supposing instead of Salmonella typhi, we had Burkholderia cephacea, the organism isolated. We all know Burkholderia cephacea is an organism which is usually found in intensive care unit, where good number of antibiotics has been used and the patients are there for a long time. So a patient who is coming from the community, who doesn't have a history of hospital stay, the chances of Burkholderia cephacea is practically nil. Where from this has come? This has come as a contaminant. The povidone iodine solution which we use to disinfect the skin, if they are old enough, they will grow Burkholderia cephacea. So this is a contaminant. But here we have got Salmonella typhi. So this is a true pathogen. Now the next important thing we would like to see, what is the sensitivity pattern of this Salmonella typhi. First we would like to see the sensitivity pattern against the three first line drugs. The three first line drugs is ampicillin, to which it is sensitive. Next is 4-trimoxazole, to which it is sensitive. And third is chloramphenicol, which is sensitive. These days, Salmonella typhi is showing sensitivity to first line drugs because these first line drugs is not being used for quite a long time, many years. But none of the authorities of infectious disease will ask you to treat a case, an admitted case of Salmonella typhi who needs parenteral therapy to treat with first line drugs. So after the first line drug, what you will see whether the Salmonella typhi is sensitive to nalidixic acid. Here we see it is resistant to nalidixic acid. Nalidixic acid serves as a surrogate marker to tell you whether this Salmonella typhi will be sensitive to fluoroquinolones. If you find Salmonella typhi is resistant to nalidixic acid but sensitive to ciprofloxacin, you cannot use ciprofloxacin because nalidixic acid is a surrogate marker. But fortunately here, both nalidixic acid and ciprofloxacin are resistant. Third, we see the resistant pattern against third generation cephalosporins like ceftriaxone and cefotaxime. Here it is resistant to both ceftriaxone and cefotaxime. This is not common at all. We do come across Salmonella typhi resistant to ceftriaxone, but this is not that common. So let us see the examples, what might be the reasons for, in spite of giving proper antibiotics, the patient is not improving. So non-response in culture-proven enteric fever. The first thing you should think is prolonged time to defervescence. These days, the fever is last to fall in case of typhoid. Before that, the child's general well-being will be there, the child's appetite will return, but fever might persist for a little longer time. So don't get worried by the fever. The next important thing you should think about is the drug fever. Ceftriaxone is one of the medicines, one of the antibiotics which is responsible for drug fever. How do you understand drug fever? In drug fever, the child will be not that toxic, though the child will have high temperature. Usually, high temperatures is associated with tachycardia, but in drug fever, there won't be any tachycardia. And finally, if you stop the offending drug, the fever is going to go away. The third important cause of non-response might be thrombophlebitis. Check the injection site. If there's any swelling, any pain, think of thrombophlebitis. Fourthly, chances of co-infection. Though these are not common, but at times respiratory infection, UTI can be there along with typhoid. So exclude those, and then you think of resistance. The next important cause is complications. The salmonella typhi can spread to different parts of the body. It can cause acute polycystitis. It can cause osteomyelitis. It can involve any other system. So look for the complications. And finally, also you should think of HLH, hemophagocytic syndrome. In cases of typhoid fever is often there, and you diagnose by there will be two or more bloodlines will be depressed. The child will be very toxic. There will be high ferritin. And once you diagnose hemophagocytic syndrome, if you give proper antibiotics and proper supportive care, most of them don't require any steroid or any immunosuppressive agent. So let us see what is the way the typhoid has, how the typhoid has developed resistance against antibiotics in the years to come. So in the first decade of 20th century, there was no antibiotics against typhoid. And then it was a disease of school children and young adults. Mortality was fairly high, 15%. Then in 1948, it was Theodore Woodward, who was working in Malay Peninsula and was frantically searching for a medicine against scrub typhoid. In the process of his search, he came across chloramphenicol. Chloramphenicol didn't have any action against scrub typhus, but it cured enteric fever. And soon, following chloramphenicol, ampicillin and co-triamoxazole was discovered. And these three drugs had excellent activity against Salmonella typhi in the 1940s, and the mortality, which was as high as 15%, fell down to less than 1%. It took another 40 years to develop resistance against these first-line drugs. And we first came across multi-drug resistant Salmonella typhi, in which Salmonella typhi was resistant to chloramphenicol, ampicillin, and co-triamoxazole. But by that time, we had fluoroquinolones in our armamentarium, and these fluoroquinolones had excellent activity against Salmonella typhi. But promiscuous use of fluoroquinolones in subtherapeutic dose, suboptimal time, took only 10 years to develop resistance against fluoroquinolones. So multi-drug resistant Salmonella typhi has become multi-drug resistant Salmonella typhi plus fluoroquinolone resistance. But when fluoroquinolone resistance was there, by that time we had two important antibiotics. One is third generation cephalosporin, ceftriaxone. Another is azithromycin. For those patients who needs hospital admission where parenteral therapy is given, ceftriaxone was good enough for parenteral therapy, and those patients who could be managed from the outpatients or can be managed from home, for them we had azithromycin. So the mortality against typhoid is still less than 1%. In 2018, it was in the Sindh province of Pakistan where they reported a group of persons suffering from Salmonella typhi infection which were resistant to ceftriaxone. Though stray incidents of ceftriaxone was reported here and there from many countries, but it had never been a serious problem. But the clones which are isolated in the Sindh province of Pakistan, this clone has an ability to spread across the country, and not only that, the same clone was also found out from the United Kingdoms. So if ceftriaxone resistant Salmonella typhi becomes the major clone of circulating Salmonella typhi, then we have only one antibiotic which will be effective against Salmonella typhi, that is carbapenems like meropenem, And all of you know that this meropenem is a very costly drug which cannot be used by the common people because of the expense. So the only thing which remains in our hand is azithromycin, but again azithromycin has its own problem. It is not for parenteral use, it is only given in the oral form. So with the fall of this last vanguard, azithromycin, we were heading towards XDR typhoid. And that clone of Salmonella typhi, which were resistant to ceftriaxone, was known as XDR typhoid. But only time will say whether XDR typhoid is going to replace the Salmonella typhi, which is still sensitive to ceftriaxone. And if it really happens, we are heading towards a pre-antibiotic era, because then the treatment of enteric fever will be very difficult. So does a vaccine can give any solution to antimicrobial resistance? Yes, if a vaccine is there, it gives two types of protection. One is primary protection and a secondary protection. If a person is vaccinated, he is prevented or he does not develop infection not due to antibiotics but due to antibodies which prevent the Salmonella typhi to get foothold in his gut. So in vaccinated individual, primary protection is given by the vaccine so that the drug resistant strain does not propagate. And not only that, vaccine also give a secondary protection by preventing the transport of infection from the person who is vaccinated to the next person. So vaccine gives two types of protection, protecting the individual who has taken the vaccine and also protecting the transmission of the disease. So a vaccine against enteric fever or Salmonella typhi will be very much effective in also against this antimicrobial resistance. So this is the pattern of resistance which we found, which is found in our country. The light line is India, and you can see chloramphenicol resistance has dropped down considerably. All the first line drug, chloramphenicol, cotrimoxazole and ampicillin, they are very much sensitive these days because of non-use of these drugs. And if you see ciprofloxacin resistance, it is very high, almost in the tune of 90%. And ceftriax resistance is not still there, but we don't know whether this XDR typhoid is going to spread. And azithromycin is also effective. So this is the current status of antibiotic resistance in against Salmonella typhi. So for this we need a vaccine, and there is two types of vaccine. One was parenteral, another was oral. But oral vaccine is no longer available, so we won't discuss anything about the oral vaccine. As we all know, Salmonella typhi has a polysaccharide coating, and there is a antigen known as VI antigen in the polysaccharide coating, and the VI antigen is responsible for the virulence of the organism, and the antibodies against the VI antigen gives us protection. Developed from polysaccharide antigen has its own problem. Number one, it cannot be used in children below 2 years, because below 2 years the immune system is not that much well developed to recognize this antigen. Currently, this epidemiological shifting of the age in case of Salmonella typhi, more and more cases are it does not stimulate the T cells, so there is no memory cells stimulated. So after giving the vaccine, after a few years, the antibody level will fall down, and you need to give repeated doses to boost up the antibody level. So no memory cells. The third is the polysaccharide vaccine produces antibodies of IgM class, which these antibodies are of poor affinity and avidity, and these are not good antibodies. So it is better, not better. So nowadays we don't use polysaccharide vaccine, but we use a conjugate vaccine. What we do, we take the VI antigen, the polysaccharide antigen from Salmonella typhi or from any other source, and we add a protein to this VI antigen. There are 5 proteins which are used for conjugation. Proteins can be derived from tetanus toxide, protein can be derived from diphtheria toxide, or protein can be derived from CRM. This is known as cross-reactive material 197. I'll explain a little bit in detail. Another conjugate protein which we can use is protein D, which is derived from non-typable Haemophilus influenzae, or it can be an outer membrane protein of Neisseria meningitis. At present, currently, there are 2 types of typhoid vaccine available in the market. The sponsors vaccine contains CRM or cross-reactive material which is derived from diphtheria toxin, whereas the competitors which are there in the market already has a protein conjugate derived from tetanus toxide. Now we'll little bit discuss about this in details. So this is what I was telling, the advantages of a conjugate vaccine. In conjugate vaccine, what you do, you add a protein to the polysaccharide antigen and trick the body. So conjugate vaccines are effective even in children below 2 years. This is very important because of the epidemiological shift of the age below 2 years. Conjugate vaccine, TCV means typhoid conjugate vaccine, stimulates the memory cell. So you need not give repeated injections. Response is boostable because the memory cells are there stimulated in typhoid conjugate vaccine. So it produces a long lasting immunity. And this typhoid conjugate vaccine produces antibodies of the IgG class, which has better affinity and avidity. So it has of better efficacy. So this is what happens actually in polysaccharide vaccine. When the antigen is given, the antigen is taken up by the antigen presenting cells. And these antigen presenting cells, they enter the lymph nodes or the spleen where antibodies are produced, but they cannot enter the germinal centers. They can enter only the place outside the germinal center. And they stimulate only the B cells. Antigen presenting cells stimulate the B cells, and the B cells in turn produces antibodies, but again these antibodies are of IgM class, poor in quality, last for few months or years, and they need repeated vaccination. But once you have conjugated the polysaccharide antigen with protein, this conjugate typhoid vaccine is taken up again by the antigen presenting cells as they enter the lymph nodes of the spleen. They can enter the germinal center where they not only stimulate the B cells, they also stimulate the T helper cells. And the T helper cells in turn instructs the B cell to develop into plasma cells, and also some of the B cells are transformed into memory B cells. These plasma cells, they produce antibodies of IgG class, which are of much better quality. And some of the B cells which are transformed into the memory cell, they survive in the survival niches of the body for the rest of the life. And if you subsequently come across the same antigen or the same offender, this memory B cells will in turn become plasma cells, and they will produce this IgG high class antibodies. So here how a conjugate vaccine differs from polysaccharide vaccine. Now, what is the recommendation of typhoid conjugate vaccine? World Health Organization has given typhoid conjugate vaccine is preferred in all age groups because of its improved immunological properties, can be used in young children and long duration of protection. And the IAP ACVIP committee has recommended a single dose of typhoid conjugate vaccine from the age of 6 months onwards. An interval of at least 4 weeks is not mandatory, because if you give typhoid conjugating vaccine and measles containing vaccine at the age of 9 months or beyond, we don't give measles vaccine in less than 9 months unless and unless there is an outbreak situation. And it has been suggested by ACVIP that those children who has received a typhoid polysaccharide vaccine should be given a single dose of TCV typhoid conjugate vaccine at least 4 weeks after the polysaccharide vaccine. And as of now, whether booster doses of typhoid conjugate vaccine is recommended or not is not known, because long-term studies are not there. So now let's see what difference it makes when with this new vaccine. This new vaccine has two important difference from the older typhoid conjugate vaccine. First of all, this VI antigen, the VI antigen which is present in the outer coat of the Salmonella typhi, can be taken from Salmonella typhi, or it can be taken from another organism known as Cytobacter friendii. So the new vaccine differs from the older vaccine that its VI antigen is derived from Cytobacter friendii, whereas the other conjugate vaccines VI antigen is derived from Salmonella typhi itself. Whereas the new typhoid vaccine, the B vaccine typhoid, has CRM as a conjugate protein. The existing typhoid vaccine such as typhoid TCV has conjugated protein derived from tetanus toxoid, and there are certain differences in these. The CRM is a non-toxic CRM, this carrier protein. CRM is a non-toxic toxin, diphtheria toxin, which is isolated from the cultures of wild diphtheria bacilli. This CRM differs from wild diphtheria toxin in its composition. There is a point mutation, so one of the amino acids in CRM has been replaced by something other. The CRM, which is the derivative of diphtheria toxin, need not be detoxified anymore. And as it is not detoxified by adding any chemicals or other things, it retains its lysine side chain. And if the lysine side chain is retained, it can bind very well with the VI polysaccharide antigen. Whereas in other vaccines which use tetanus toxoid as the conjugate protein, what you have to do, you have to add formaldehyde to the tetanus toxoid protein to detoxify it. In the process of adding formaldehyde, the structure of that protein is changed. And if you change the structure of the protein, then the lysine residues are not that much available to bind with the protein, bind with the polysaccharide antigens. So here you see the CRM is highly purified. It does not require any formaldehyde which is to detoxify. So it has a full complement of its lysine side chains which can be attached. So this is how the CRM looks like. The black center is the protein, and it binds very nicely with the polysaccharide antigens. But when you use to detoxify toxin by giving chemicals like formaldehyde, the protein, they cross-link with each other, and they cannot bind properly with the polysaccharide antigens. So the composition of the vaccine varies from batch to batch, and the diphtheria toxin or tetanus toxin purity is only 60 to 70%, indicating high impurities and residual toxicities. And because of the changed nature, the T cell and B cell cannot bind with this properly. So this is one. The second important difference, the VI antigen here is taken from Cytobacter frendi. Cytobacter frendi is found in the soil. It is a common cell bacteria which is found in the soil, which lives inside the human and animal gut, and it is involved in the maintenance of the nitrogen cycle. And it belongs to the biosafety level 1. Whereas those vaccines which use VI antigen from Salmonella typhi, they belong to the biosafety level 2. And what is the difference between the biosafety level 1 and 3? Sorry, this is biosafety level 3. The difference is that with biosafety level 1, they are devoid of many toxins, so the vaccine is more safer. Benefit to the environment, there's no risk of contaminating the environment, and benefit to the vaccine manufacturer, there's no risk of the people who are working in the manufacturing of the vaccine. So with this, let us now see the test of the pudding is in eating. So what are the different data which are available regarding these two vaccines? 622 Indian subjects aged from 6 months to 45 years were selected. They are divided into 3 groups. One is 6 months to 2 years, another is 2 to 18 years, another is 18 years to 45 years. 9 centers were selected across India, and half of them was given this new typhoid typhi wave vaccine, which is a product of B, and a competitor vaccine Tyvar TCV was given. A single dose of vaccine was given. Just before the vaccine was given, a blood sample was drawn to see the antibody levels against the Salmonella typhi. And again, after 6 weeks of vaccination, that is 42 days of vaccination, again another bleeding was done to see the antibody level. Now let's see what the result shows. The blue color is the B vaccine and the yellow color is the competitor vaccine. So you see the seroconversion rate. That means those who have produced antibodies almost similar in both this group. So the new vaccine is shows equal seroconversion as compared to the other group. Next, how many of the persons who received the vaccine shows more fourfold or more than fourfold rise in the antibody titers. Both the new vaccine and the old competitor shows similar rate of seroconversion. And it is a WHO model projection of how long the antibodies will last above 90%. And it has shown that mathematical projection has shown that the vaccine will have sustained protection at least for 4 years. But studies are not there to tell you any further. But the most important is the local adverse effect. A vaccine is judged by how much problem it causes. So if you see the local adverse effect, our vaccine is the blue colored vaccine and the competitor is yellow colored. If you see swelling, erythema and pain, these are the most 3 important local side effect we have following vaccination. It shows that our vaccine has less than half of these complications. And if you see systemic adverse effect, the 2 most important systemic adverse effect is fever, and it is showing that the incidence of fever with the vaccine which I am talking is even less than half. So because of the purity of the VI antigen and the conjugated protein, the vaccine has low local and both systemic side effects. So the summary of the safety, there was no serious adverse event reported with typhi wave. The acute problem was seen only in 8.4% those who received typhoid fever as compared with 15.2% in the other. So fever and local adverse reaction was less and lower adverse effect was noticed with B typhoid conjugate vaccine. So this is the vaccine which is recently available. It contains BI polysaccharide 25 microgram derived from uh, Cytobacter peri and is conjugated to CRM, which I've explained in detail. And as of now, it has got recommendation to be used from 6 months to 45 years. A single dose should be given intramuscularly. And this is the comparative results of these two vaccines, which I have explained in detail. I need not go into any further. And in summary, we can tell Typhivav is a new generation typhoid conjugate vaccine done with advanced technology. Here, the conjugation has been done with cross-reactive material derived from diphtheria toxin, 25 microgram of VI polysaccharide, which is derived from different organism, Cytobacter friendly. It has more than 99% seroconversion with high GMT. It has an excellent safety profile, much better than the competitor brands. And this Typhivav is licensed for use from 6 months to 45 years as a single dose. And it is currently undergoing a WHO pre-qualification. So with this, I thank you for your patient hearing.
Ritabrata,
Yes.
one thing that usually in my practice I use Type-B TCV till now, but I haven't come across so much pain or any fever, any complication like this, any adverse
Actually,
effect.
if you, as such, typhoid vaccine does not cause much
Pain and
problem, but whatever little problem you have, it will be because of this. The problem is usually caused by this conjugated protein, because and this where from the source of VI vaccine. So lesser amounts of impurities, less will be the side effects. So whatever little you have, it will be further less with this vaccine.
Okay.
So anything or anybody else?
And one thing that you are telling only one dose of conjugate vaccine will be enough. Usually
One
we
dose of
use
conjugate vaccine is enough because there are no studies which have seen the long-term effect. So as of now, it has been recommended, though some of us, they do give a dose, another dose if they give the vaccine round about 9 months or less, they give another dose around 3 or 4 years, but there is no studies to
what
substantiate
should
their.
we follow? We follow one dose PCV, one dose TCV, and next dose after 1 year.
I
What should
don't
be the
think after
schedule?
1 year, there are studies which have shown the antibody level persists more than 1 year. So if you want to give, I think it is better you give another dose little later, not so early.
Okay.
No, what is the IAP guideline? IAP has
IIP guideline has
mentioned,
suggested
Shall
one
we
dose.
repeat the dose
no,
or
is it
not?
one or
One, not to repeat. One single dose given from 6 months onwards. But let me see if there is any question answer. Salmonella paratyphi, no, it's not a really threat, because if you see the number of typhoid patients, only not even 10% belongs to Salmonella typhi, and unfortunately Salmonella paratyphi. Unfortunately, we don't have any vaccination against Salmonella paratyphi. Can polysaccharide vaccine using as first and second dose using as the, even if you have given one or more of polysaccharide vaccine, you should give at least one single dose of typhoid conjugate vaccine after 4 weeks. What is the ideal time of typhoid test? That I was telling. What improvement you have done in typhoid test? What you have done? You have removed the IgG antibodies because IgG antibodies denote both recent and past infection. But the problem of this test, whether it is modified or the grand old Vidal test, that here you are identifying an antibody. But antibody as a test for diagnosis of any infectious disease is of poor quality because of several reasons I told you. So be it Vidal test, be it modified Vidal test, whatever test you do, these tests should really does not give much information. If you have to diagnose salmonella typhi, it is always better to go for blood culture. And what is important, that this is the organism which can be cultured very early. Even in the first week of fever, the culture positivity rate is as high as 80 to 90%. And what is more important, even if you give antibiotic, despite antibiotics, you can isolate the organism. This is quite unlike to pneumococcus. In pneumococcus, it is very difficult to isolate the organism, and if you give any antibiotic, it is almost impossible. So here lies the importance of doing blood culture in case of, and these days blood culture does not need, it can be done with very small amount of blood, and the results are also available within a day or two.
No, I think, as you said, that the antibodies, but then why do you do IgM antibody for dengue? This test is looking for IgM antibody.
Yes,
This is like a modified Vidal.
But
this test is looking for IgM antibody.
I understand. I'm telling you, because these antibodies against this enteric organism, they are also will be positive any other enterobacteria. If you have an E. coli infection in your gut, it will show the same. And it has been seen with this salmonella typhi, even if you have malaria, you will have these antibodies. So these antibodies.
I never do IgM antibody test typhi in my life.
I also never do.
Though Dr. Sibratan Tibrewal did thesis under me on this test, and I was not very happy with the results. But I still see a lot of people, they spend money on IgM test, whereas they could have spent this money on a culture.
Yes.
And which will give you more information and definitive information, and also the drug sensitivity. So
yes.
It is no point doing an IgM test. The only advantage may be that you get the result in 24 hours, within a few hours. But if you can wait for another 24 hours, you will get a culture positive report, which will be more authentic and definitive.
And you tell us, what is the charge of the culture report from our hospital?
I think even in Roy Trivedi, they charge 1100 to 1200. And in our hospital, I really don't
700, 750 like this.
Yeah.
As far as I remember.
Yeah,
so
it's around
that gives very two vital information. Also, it gives the drug sensitivity pattern on which your therapy will be based.
I think in this case, it is more important to spend money on culture. Like in the beginning, doing a CRP, SGPT, and all others. So it doesn't give you any value to your treatment.
There is a question that whether you should use first line drugs, that is ampicillin, chloramphenicol, or amoxazole, to use in salmonella typhi. Now, if you take one by one, chloramphenicol is a drug which can cause very serious toxicity, though it is not very common, it is rare. If by chance your patient has developed any toxicity, if you are taken in the court of law, then everyone will ask you, why have you given a drug when safer alternatives was available? So there is no question of using chloramphenicol. Regarding cotrimoxazole, we never use cotrimoxazole injectable. It is used for oral therapy, but serious typhoid cases, they need parenteral therapy. And regarding ampicillin, only ampicillin is not available these days. So that's the reason. And also none of the international authorities or anybody will still suggest you to start therapy with first line drugs. So what is your opinion, Apurvo, regarding this? So whether
I think the cefixime is now the best drug.
Yes, third generation cephalosporin.
Yeah,
So will you treat?
cefixime is the best drug.
No, no. The
And,
question was if the child has a serious enteric fever, which is showing sensitivity to first line drug.
no, I will still use cefixime.
Ceftriaxone or cefotaxime?
Yeah, I mean
Parenteral.
ceftriaxone if it is parenteral, and cefixime if it is oral.
It is oral.
And the only one new change that is coming up, that is cefixime can be given up to a dose of 30 milligram per kg, rather
Yes.
than the conventional dose that we give 10 to 20 milligram per kg.
20.
One can go up to 30 milligram per kg.
Right.
And that's
also
the
you should-
medicine I use
Yes.
in all cases of typhoid as the first line therapy.
One another important like to say, typhoid fever, if you use azithromycin, it should be used in a dose of 20 milligram per kg, unlike 10 milligram per kg which you use. And it is better if you give it for 7 days, not for 5 days, unlike other infection. And another important thing I'd like to say, azithromycin should not be used for trivial infection. This is a drug which works wonderful against Mycoplasma pneumoniae, Chlamydia pneumoniae, and also in enteric fever. If you use azithromycin to treat Streptococcus and Staphylococcus infection, nowadays these two bugs are also resistant to azithromycin. So you will be losing this extremely important drug. The problem with azithromycin half-life. So the sore throat, people use azithromycin. Don't do that.
No, Ridhapatho, if I can comment a little bit.
Yeah.
The advantage of azithromycin that it has got 100 times more penetration into the macrophages. So that is the reason it is very good for typhoid
Enteric
fever.
fever, I'm advocating for enteric fever,
Yeah.
but not for
Yeah.
other infections, sore throat.
The other thing about azithromycin is that azithromycin resistance in Southeast Asia and many other countries has gone up to 97%. Like in China, it has gone up to 97%. So if you think of azithromycin for mycoplasma, definitive mycoplasma, azithromycin will not be and should not be the drugs in near future. The drug of choice for those cases will be the doxycycline. And that is the reason even in adults, if you go to the up-to-date, for mycoplasma, they have given us the tetracycline as the drug of choice rather than azithromycin. So azithromycin, if you are definite that this is the mycoplasma, I would rather suggest that don't use azithromycin because it might be a failure because of the resistance. 97% in China, and in many other countries like Korea, Japan, it has gone up to 90%. So use doxycycline in those cases if you are definite that this is a mycoplasma.
Taken, well taken. And so you should try to save azithromycin, I think. Don't use it for, and these days, I don't know, whenever anybody has any fever, people start with azithromycin because I don't think azithromycin has any role against COVID.
One of the reasons for this is that some people say that the azithromycin works for coronavirus.
No.
So
that's what I was also telling.
that is
In COVID area,
for me,
people,
for
any sore
nothing
throat, they are
really,
using COVID.
yes, nothing really works in coronavirus. People will come with hydroxychloroquine, someone will say azithromycin, some will say remdesivir, and others, nothing really.
So if nothing works against anything, then so many things are available. And if something works against anything, only one thing is available.
That is same thing with God.
Yes.
Because we don't know whether the God is there or not. So there are so many gods.
Yes, so that's the way. And azithromycin is an immunomodulator. So even if you get some improvement, it might be not due to the antibiotic part. Because of this immunomodulation, you can have something.
Oh, yes.
If you really have something.
But azithromycin might have a role in patients of cystic fibrosis. Both as an immunomodulator and both as a prophylactic antibiotic.
Prophylactic role.
Prophylactic antibiotic in those cases.
Apurva, there is only one God, but in different forms. Don't Separate them.
And I mean, I'm not going into I'm not going into debate about this. But what I feel about the drugs about the
Don't
COVID
separate
is
them.
what I feel about. See, I'm
তুমি
not going to
ডিফারেন্ট
argue
সাজে
this.
সাজতে পারো, তুমি
This is
যেমন
not the
ডিফারেন্ট টাইমে
this is
ডিফারেন্ট
not the
স্যুট পরতে
forum.
পারো, পাঞ্জাবি পরতে
They
পারো,
don't say it in the.
This is not the forum.
সেরকম।
But what I'm saying that because we don't know what was, there is so many drugs. Like
That
people
is
say,
God, because we don't know anything.
A question from my old friend Harish Kumar from UP. Harish Kumar, first line drug usually you don't use. Don't take this risk. It is always better use third generation cephalosporin.
But if you want to use first line, it is rather not ampicillin rather than amoxicillin will be better.
Yes, but nowadays for parenteral, but nowadays available it's no amoxicillin parenteral, or you will have co-amoxiclav, but you will not have only amoxicillin. Problem is that
I have seen people using chloramphenicol rather than using other drugs. Please don't use chloramphenicol. I mean, you might be
In deep
going
trouble.
to jail, or might be spending all your money in the court and giving a compensation. As Ridhabodha has said, that there are so many better alternatives. The way I don't use cotrimoxazole for urinary tract infection prophylaxis,
you land
because
up in Stephen Johnson
there was a
syndrome.
case in Kerala where there was a Stephen Johnson syndrome after cotrimoxazole, and the judge asked exactly what you said, Ridhabodha, that was there an alternative? And then the doctor said yes, there was alternative. Though in USA they use cotrimoxazole, UK uses trimethoprim. They don't use cotrimoxazole. But for heaven's sake, please always think of the medical legal aspects rather than always trying to treat the patient
Cheaper.
somehow or other. Somehow or other. There is an option for admission. You admit them.
So
not you have patient. We are scared of patient.
in English, please.
Yeah. We are always scared of patient. That if I say that get admitted, they will go to some other doctor. Let them go. You do accordingly.
Ceiling dose of cefixime in obese child. Adult dose of cefixime is ordinarily we use 200 milligram BD.
Now they have come up with a 400 milligram. There is now a cefixime of 400 milligram. The dose has been increased. You can give up to 400 milligram BD. See, there is no reason.
এটা কি গ্র্যাজুয়ালি রেজিস্ট্যান্স হচ্ছে বলে সেফেক্সিমের, না এমনি ডোজটা বেড়েছে?
No, when it was not resistant. Cefixime resistance is still not that common, excepting in Pakistan.
So why the dose is increasing? We are getting better result in low dose also. Actual dose-তেই তো আমরা রেজাল্ট পাচ্ছি না।
Nah, if you increase the dose, the time to defervescence and time to will little bit decrease. Otherwise, if you use 10 milligram per kg, it will take a long time to come down. So it is always better to give 20 milligram per kg. That won't cause any harm.
That will not cause any harm.
That's all right. 20 milligram is okay, but 200 is okay. 400 is bit.
Then he has asked in an obese child, what is the ceiling in adult maximum?
Adult
400
now,
milligram BD.
they have come up with the tablets. Previously, there was only one strength that was 200 BD.
200.
But now that was has been increased to 400 BD because that's an adult dose.
Yes, that's an maximum
there was
ceiling
no tablet.
is under obese child, he has asked.
There was no tablet for 400. Now there are tablets for 400.
Yes.
In obese child, it is always very difficult because the area of distribution of the drug does not increase with the weight because fat doesn't have that much of blood vessels.
No, what should be the dictum in obese child? Would you give a dose based on surface area or based on weight?
Surface area is always better, but there is no dose for surface area on cefixime.
There's no dose like that.
There is no dose on surface area. No.
Acha, at the end, you'll ask Dibyendu to say something. Somnath, Apuru, please announce that. Yes.
Dibyendu. Yes, Dibyendu. Unmute yourself first. Unmute yourself.
Good evening, sir, and good evening, doctors. I sincerely thank ICH for providing us a valuable platform for this beautiful academic discussion, and I sincerely thank Dr. Kundu for such a beautiful presentation. And I expect further more future platforms to associate with the Institute of Child Health and to deliver this kind of academic programs. And on behalf of Biologically Limited, I thank all the panelists and all the participants who have taken their valuable time out for this beautiful webinar. And thanks a lot. Thanks a lot from behalf of Biologically Vaccine Marketing. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
everybody.
Listening typhoid from the horse's mouth
Yes,
is
sir.
really a treat.
Absolutely right, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.